Hello, welcome back, my ownership babes. Thank you for being here as we are talking in this session about corporate America. If you're new here, I retired from corporate America very early by using a lot of those corporate strategies that I learned as an accountant because I knew I could apply those lessons that I learned to run major corporations. I transferred that into my personal life, and that allowed me to be free. So today I'm just going to talk about one of the biggest lessons that I learned, and that is ownership. And I want to jump right into it because ownership, the way I define it, is that ownership is about owning your thoughts, your mind, your actions, owning your life, not really being entrapped or enslaved to anything or anyone. I just truly believe with my faith that God does not want us to be enslaved to all these things in the world, but most times we are trapped, and that is because of lack of ownership. And see, ownership, I realized, just a little quick story. I just realized when I was working in corporate America, I started seeing things. I started seeing that at any moment they could make a change. Not just, yes, maybe layoffs, they could change, they could give someone a promotion and that didn't deserve it. I started seeing all the politics of corporate America, and I understand some of that is what helped me to advance and to make that income that I desired. But I didn't want to play that game forever. So I knew I had to own things. And one of the ways was I knew that when I did research, I said, okay, how many, I looked up the type of people, how many people were retiring. And I also looked up what was preventing people from retiring. And a lot of it was due to debt. People were trying to retire, but still had a mortgage, which, called, and then they were already on a fixed income, which made it hard. People were trying to retire and they still had credit card debt. And I immediately, once I understood the problem, I said, here's the solution. I have to become totally debt free, including the mortgage. Now, there's a piece that I add to it that I often say in these sessions is the cash component. But today we're just really focusing on the ownership part of it, owning everything. So here's some ways that I was able to own it. One, I had to realize that ownership was the key. Because on my job, I didn't have any equity in the job. All they paid me was a salary. And if you don't have equity in something, then you really don't have true ownership. So I had to start getting equity in the things that I own. So just realizing was the first step. Number two, I really had to I was already at a point where I was working my budget, but I really had to look at my net worth. I had to look at my assets and my liabilities. And I just know from accounting that your assets should always exceed your liability. If not, you're in trouble. So I looked at my home and the things that I still owed, and I had to make sure that I did what? Pay it off. So I put together a strategy so that I could pay it off in under 36 months. Thank God I was able to do that. Pay off my home, credit card debt. At that time, I already realized credit card debt was not the way to be. So I have not paid interest in I don't know how long. I've already been debt free from the mortgage for 3 years now. So because of that, I haven't paid anyone any interest. I just feel if I need to borrow money, I borrow it from myself and I pay myself interest. So I started really understanding what I'm saying is the money rules that people don't talk about. And a lot of times people don't. They'll talk about retirement and that you need to retire, but people don't talk about debt. I even started to talk to people at work about retirement, and some people would say, well, I think I'm going to, and they just really weren't that confident. And I was like, well, do you just like your job? Because if you like it, then that's fine, do it, and until you die, that's great. But a lot of them, it was the debt that was holding them back. They were entrapped to debt, whether that was taxes, credit cards, or their mortgage. And they were miserable. So when I understood that that was standing in the way of my retirement, I knew I had to put together a plan and work it. And then the last thing is, once I did all of that, I didn't immediately leave corporate America. Everything, when I realized that everything became a profit, every paycheck, that salary was a profit. Why? Because I no longer had to pay anyone except for the necessary expenses to run my home and taxes and things of that sort. So I made sure that from that time on, I was just going fanatical about making sure I was saving, I was investing for my future. And before I looked up, the decision was made. I could walk away from corporate America and not look back. So if anything I could tell you, if you're at a point where you want to work the plan, you do want to get to retirement, or maybe you don't want to just retire, maybe you want to leave that job and do the job that maybe God has put in your heart to do. However, your current job is supplying that money that you need. You can still use this strategy right now to free yourself. First, you have to realize that ownership is key. And as I said, number two, you have to put a plan together to attack it, to get out of debt. And lastly, make sure you are saving money, because if you save money, I promise you, money will work for you. So that is it. And I want to thank you for tuning in, my ownership babes. Until next time, hasta luego.